Is Milton Friedman responsible for the decaying of the modern economy? At first glance, that may seem like an overstatement, but dig a little deeper, and the impact of his ideas becomes hard to ignore. As a Nobel Prize-winning economist, Milton Friedman championed a radical shift in how we think about the economy. His message? Free markets are efficient, government is the problem. Deregulate, privatize, and get out of the way. These ideas formed the foundation of what we now call neoliberalism, an economic philosophy that swept across the globe starting in the 1970s and 80s. Neoliberals argue their approach unleashes economic growth by letting markets operate freely, creating jobs, innovation, and prosperity where government regulation might stifle progress. They champion individual freedom, people choosing their own economic paths without bureaucratic interference. In their eyes, government inefficiencies, corruption, and red tape slow down economic activity and sap incentives to work or invest. Instead, competition and profit drive businesses to improve quality and lower costs. It's the engine of innovation, and ultimately, a rising tide that lifts all boats. Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher were among Friedman's most famous disciples. They deregulated industries, cut taxes for the wealthy, privatized public services, and crushed labor unions, all in the name of unleashing the free market. And for a while, it seemed to work. Markets boomed, Wall Street thrived. But under the surface, something was rotting. Because while neoliberalism promised growth and freedom, it created a system that prioritized profit over people, growth over equity, and efficiency over stability. Friedman famously argued that the sole purpose of business is to increase shareholder value, a philosophy that paved the way for outsourcing, wage stagnation, and corporate consolidation, which has led to crippling income inequality. It can be described as a form of financial terrorism, a system that terrorizes the middle and lower classes and consolidates wealth and power to the already exuberant rich. Friedman's influence wasn't only in just the West. He also advised military dictator Augusto Pinochet in Chile, who rose to power by violently overthrowing Salvador Allende, Chile's democratically elected socialist president who rejected neoliberalism. Allende was committed to nationalizing key industries, investing in social programs, and keeping Chilean resources in Chilean hands. That made him a threat, not just to local elites, but to the global neoliberal project. After the coup, thousands of Chileans were tortured, disappeared, or murdered, many simply for resisting neoliberal reforms. Union leaders, academics, activists, anyone who stood in the way of the free market agenda was silenced, often permanently. Yes, inflation dropped, but it came at the cost of human lives, civil liberties, and democracy. And Friedman? He praised Chile's economic miracle. He also commended China's turn toward capitalism in the 1980s, not because it empowered citizens, but because it embraced free markets while maintaining authoritarian control. Free markets without free people. That was fine with him, as long as the markets were free. Across the globe, neoliberalism didn't just deregulate industries and liberalize trade. It hollowed out public life, public assets, from railways to water, housing to electricity, were stripped apart and sold off for peanuts. Services built by the taxpayer over generations were handed to corporations who ran them for profit, not for the public good. Fares went up, quality went down, and the goal shifted from serving people to serving private investors. The dogma of neoliberalism crept into every corner of society. Health, education, housing, all seen as commodities, not rights. And in return, what we see is in our societies are the ramifications of those neoliberal ideas. A housing crisis, a cost of living crisis, a climate crisis, and an entire generation priced out of security, let alone prosperity. So is Milton Friedman solely to blame? Number, he didn't write legislation or sign executive orders, but, and this is key, he inspired them. His theories gave intellectual cover to a global economic shift, a shift that eroded the middle class, weakened worker protections, and tied our futures to the whims of markets and billionaires. Now, to be fair, not all of his ideas were dangerous. Friedman supported a form of universal basic income through a negative income tax. That side of his thinking? Ignored. Instead, politicians selectively applied the parts that helped the powerful and discarded the rest. In the end, Milton Friedman gave the world a loaded weapon. It was politicians and corporations who pulled the trigger. But without Friedman, would the weapon have been built in the first place? If you found this content thought-provoking, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more deep dives.